The information provided on Terminal Addiction Podcast is for educational and informational purposes only. It is not intended as a substitute for professional medical or mental health advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Always seek the advice of your physician, licensed therapist, or other qualified provider with any questions you might have regarding medical or mental health condition. Never disregard professional advice or delay seeking it because of something you heard on this podcast. The views and opinions expressed by the guests, the hosts, are their own, and they do not necessarily reflect those of any affiliated organization or institutions. While we strive to provide accurate and up-to-date information, we make no guarantee regarding the completeness, reliability, or applicability of the content discussed. Listening to this podcast does not establish provider-patient relationship. If you're experiencing a medical emergency or mental health crisis, please contact emergency services or crisis line immediately.
All right, we are back with another episode of Terminal Addiction. My name is Doug H.
And I'm Old Dog. I'm Paul B.
Old Dog's here with us today. Paul B. He's just trying out some new nicknames. We're going to see if this one sticks. Yeah, welcome back. We appreciate everybody that's been listening, giving us some feedback. You can always check us out on our website. We've got Facebook and Instagram, and we're over on Spotify and I think Apple Music. And so you guys got a lot of different ways you can find us. And we just really appreciate, the people that have been taking time out of their days to support us and listen and even reach out and let us know what you guys think about this. So just a big thank you to all of our listeners so far.
Yeah, we wanted to start off talking a little bit about emotions. I know going after treatment, I went from seeing everything in gray to seeing everything in color again. I used to do a lot of photography, and I lost that passion during my active addiction, and I realized later that I was seeing everything in shades of gray versus in color. But slowly gaining back some of those emotions and some of the emotions that I dealt with, especially in early recovery.
Yeah, I remember while I was drinking and using, I was pretty confined to feeling these feelings of okay, all right, fine, and good, and that was about as much as I could express. Getting clean and sober, I was always told, the good news is you get your feelings back. Bad news is get your feelings back. So I started feeling this wider array of emotions, which is actually probably pretty healthy. Because when I was drinking and using, I think I used for two reasons: either in order to feel good, or in order to numb out, feelings that I labeled as bad. And what ended up happening is both ends of that spectrum pretty much got canceled out, and I was just sort of left in this middle gray area like Paul was talking about. And I really never felt sadness. I didn't feel joy. I didn't feel much other than all right. And so getting clean and sober, especially those first few months, I think I remember feeling like a raw nerve. And both Paul and I get to work with a lot of newcomers, and we hear that a lot, that they're just overwhelmed with feelings, and they really don't know, first of all, how to identify their feelings, let alone how to feel them.
Yeah, it's really obvious when we see somebody who's just come out of detox. It's real obvious when we see somebody who's fresh and raw. And, we see a lot of tears. We see some happiness, but they don't know quite how to handle that at this point.
Yeah, I remember when I first started coming around, and I get the opportunity to see a lot of fresh faces, on their first, second, third day, out of detox. And there's just so much fear. This fear of the unknown, the fear of having to own up to things, the fear of having to face, friends and family and coworkers, and that fear of having to clean up the wreckage of our past. And the other thing I think that keeps people out a lot longer than they need to is pride. They talk about pride comes before the fall, and I think pride holds a lot of people back. It's one of those things where we always think that, or I did, that I could get clean and sober whenever I wanted to, and then when I wanted to, I couldn't, and then I didn't know how to ask for help, and that pride was really a thorn in my paw for a long time, and it kept me out there, I think, years longer than I needed to be. So between the fear and the pride, those were two feelings that I was very familiar with while I was still out drinking and using, but I didn't want to own up to it because I didn't want to be vulnerable, and that's another feeling right there.
I talk to a lot of newly sober recovering addicts about the stages of grief. The stages of grief are real not only for the newly recovering addict, but also for their families. We go through anger, we go through bargaining, we go through all these different stages. I see more and more freshly recovering addicts that are just so pissed off of the world, and they can't place it. They can't place it in the right place. They're mad at whoever it was that caught them. They're mad at their family for confronting them about their addiction. They're angry at everybody, or they're just overly sad and blaming everything on themselves.
Yeah, that anger is something that we talk to a lot of our patients about where I work, and I try to talk to a lot of just newcomers in general. And we look at anger kind of like an iceberg, and the anger is the part that sticks up above the water. The anger is something that's easy to express. People understand it. It's easy to put on that angry face and show that to the world. But I think what lies under the surface, below that iceberg, is disappointment, is frustration, is grief, is abandonment, is loss, is all these different feelings that we don't want to feel. And we've been numbing out how we feel for so long with drugs and alcohol that a lot of it just comes out as anger. And our families don't know what to do with that because we're not giving them much to work with. All we're really giving them is anger, and that prevents any of these meaningful conversations from really taking place. So I think it's important to be able to dig below the surface and figure out what's under the anger. I don't think anger is a wasted emotion, but I do think it's a secondary emotion that's usually triggered by something a little bit deeper below the surface that probably needs to come out. And I know for me, it was working with a good counselor while I was in treatment. It was getting into therapy. It was getting in with some guys that would guide me along the way, some good sober supports, and really working on identifying those things and then finding ways to work through them.
And another emotion that a lot of us deal with is selfishness. And so for me, selfishness, we always hear that that recovery is a selfish program. Okay, got it. But I have to take care of myself first. But in order to do that, I have to also take care of those other people around me. I have to take care of my family. I have to take care of my friends, but still remember that I have to do that to maintain my sobriety. Doug and I both remember taking care of a friend of ours who was deep in addiction, and we would run him in the middle of the night to recovery center to detox week after week. And it was another recovering addict that came to me and said, you know what, you're going to get yourself drunk by doing that. I kept forgetting that in order to take care of them, I need to take care of myself first.
Yeah, when we're out drinking and using, we're selfish, in a very unhealthy way. It's me and it's only me. And that's just a really unhealthy way. When we get clean and sober, I was told, it's a selfish program and I've got to put myself first. That does not mean that other people do not come second, third, fourth, fifth, but it means that I have to have my recovery be my priority. And I remember running around with Paul, taking this guy to meetings, to detox, to the hospital, and he's doing well these days, and I'm super proud of him, and I think he knows who he is. But I did feel, a resentment slipping in. I did feel myself getting put in situations that early in recovery I shouldn't have been in, at least not alone. And a lot of those times Paul and I were together. And so I'm glad that we had each other there to lean on, but it would have been nice if we would have had somebody with more sobriety, more experience to help guide us through some of that. But the road to hell is paved with good intentions, and I think we were on our way at one point. So that selfishness, is a big thing. And, when we're drinking and using, we talk about, I'm only hurting myself. And that's just not true. And it's like the pebble getting thrown into the water. We ignore all the ripples that go out to our friends and family and neighbors and coworkers and all the people that have to, they catch the shrapnel from our grenades that we're pulling the pins on. And so that selfishness when we're drinking and using is very, very different. It's in a destructive way. It's in a harmful way. It's in a very hurtful way. When we get clean and sober, I don't always get to do all the things I want because I've got to take care of the things that I need to do. And so that's a different kind of selfishness, I think. I like to go to concerts, but I don't go to all of them because I need to go to my meetings. I like going and spending time with friends and stuff. But if people are drinking and using and doing things that I don't need to be around, I can say no to those things today and not feel bad about it because I'm prioritizing, my sobriety and my recovery.
It goes back to an earlier episode that we did on boundaries. That earlier episode, we talked about, there are times to say no, and no to others as well as no to ourselves.
Yeah, I know for myself, I like to spend time and go out and do a lot of things and enjoy my sobriety. But if I'm going to be in a situation that's unhealthy or potentially risky towards my sobriety, I sit it out a lot. I don't go and just sit at the bar. I don't go to a lot of these places by myself. I usually have a plan in place. I drive myself so that I can get myself out of these situations. I let people know where I'm going to be these days, which is a far cry from where I was when I was drinking and using. There were days or weeks at a time where people couldn't get a hold of me. And that's that unhealthy selfishness that we're talking about right there. But that selfishness where I'm going to go to a meeting before I go and do something like go to a concert, or I'm going to let my sponsor know where I'm going, or I'm going to go with somebody else who's sober or is as supportive of my sobriety so that I can enjoy these things, but also not put my sobriety at risk because I've worked too damn hard for this time.
And we don't deal with this by ourselves. I think one of the things that's important is that there are other people involved in our addiction. It's not just, hey, I got myself into this, I need to get myself out of it. You have family, you have friends, you have other people that are surrounding you that are all affected by this addiction. And so it's important that we build our relationship with ourselves first in order so we can repair those relationships around us.
Yeah, and one of the things that we talk about a lot where I work is spirituality, and the concept of spirituality we're going to touch on in a later episode, hopefully, but we talk about relationships and relationships being the fundamental piece to spirituality. We talk about that relationship with ourself being the most important because the relationship I have with myself, dictates how every other relationship in my life goes. Because if I'm not in a good place, if I'm not healthy, if I'm not happy, then I take that into all those other relationships with friends and family and coworkers. So I work on that relationship with myself, and then I work on that relationship with other people. And those other people in my life that are super important to me, my mom and dad, my aunt, close friends of mine, who've been in my corner, for years or decades. I really wanted to take that time early in recovery and work on those relationships. And that's just something as simple as a phone call, as a text message, as going over to somebody's house and spending time with them and maybe their kids and hanging out and just doing some of those things that I missed out on. When I was drinking and using. Now that I'm in a better place, people want to be around me again. And I forget that not to toot my own horn here, but people tell me that I'm important, and that my presence in their life matters. And that means a lot to me these days. And so it's really important for me when I get the chance to just go and watch a movie with somebody or watch a football game or go to a concert or go to wrestling with somebody. Cause I love wrestling, and Paul knows that. And a lot of our listeners might know that too, but so for me, popped on that one. Hope nobody went deaf on that. So for me, it's really important to work on that relationship with myself so that I can be there to spend time with other people. And then based on those relationships that I have with myself and other people, it brings me closer to the world around me, brings me closer to whatever that ultimate higher power is. A lot of people call it God. Some people call it, the universe. But I take advantage of the situations and the opportunities that are put in my path to improve the quality of the relationship with myself. And that can be things like art and music and reading and education and science and math and all those kinds of things that really do make me feel, closer to the world around me. And all of a sudden, a couple years into this, 5.5 years into this now, I'm just a happier person. Still go through lulls and still go through some downtimes. But I've got people around, like Paul was talking about, that can help me through those, that I can lean on when I'm going through hard times. And so it's really nice to still have all those really important people that were in my corner when I was struggling, here to enjoy, a clean and sober and healthier version of myself.
During the time that we were in treatment, again, it was during COVID lockdown. We didn't get to see a lot of people from the outside. But they had us take down each other's names and our phone numbers, and I started a list. And by the time I finished treatment, that list was over 50 people long. And I look back today at how many of those people are still sober. That list is short. Matter of fact, out of that list, I know of at least a couple of them that died from the disease. I have one that is sitting in prison right now. One of the former secretaries of my meeting that I have on Saturdays, I got a phone call a year after he last attended the meeting, and his wife said that he was in a coma and he died a week later. So, there are other people that are involved in my sobriety, and some of those people make it, some of them don't.
Yeah, and again, I just want to give a shout out to all the people that Paul and I know that listen to this and support us through this, because this is something that Paul and I really enjoy doing is just talking and hanging out and giving back. And this stuff is very something we're very passionate about. But for me, it was important to get connected with people like Paul, and who've got about the same amount of sobriety as I do. But it was also really important for me to get connected with people with more time. Not just my sponsor, but some of those old timers, some of those guys with 10, 20, 30, 40 years, who could show me how to get through some of the difficult times that life's going to throw at us. And not have to pick up a drink or a drug. And going through some of those things and going to some of these meetings and seeing how people get through some really, really difficult times in their lives without having to pick up a drink is inspiring, is motivating. And, it's showing me what to do when life happens. And the one thing I know not to do is just don't pick up a drink. I can be miserable. I can be sad. I can be frustrated. I can be cranky. I can be all these things. As long as I'm sober, I got a chance to get through this today, tomorrow, the next day. And I think surrounding myself with other positive, motivated, like-minded people is super important for me. And I just want to, give a thanks to everybody that's been there for me.
Yeah, I think it's a great message.
Another thing that Paul and I wanted to talk about was returning after a relapse. This go round in my sobriety, I've got a little over 5.5 years. And this is not the first time that I have tried to or have gotten clean and sober. When I was 20, I got my first DUI. When I was 21, I got my second and third DUIs. I'd been to meetings, when I was, younger, 16, 17. But nothing really stuck at that point. But when I was 21, I got clean and sober after my third DUI. Part of that was just a nudge from the judge, as they like to call it. And I stayed sober for about maybe 2.5 years. And in that time, I went back to school and got an associate's degree in audio video production and started doing some pretty cool things with my life. And I don't know what happened. I think it was some overconfidence. Probably got away from meetings. Probably didn't know enough, if I'm being honest. And thought I could drink and use like a normal person and pick back up and started drinking again around 24. Stayed out drinking for a few years after that, and ended up, going back to treatment when I was like 29. Put together a few years sober, and life happened. My uncle passed away, and I did not handle that properly, and started drinking and using again, and was out drinking for about 4 years. And this last time when I went back to treatment, I was 36 years old. I was well beat up. I burned a lot of bridges and thought that it was almost an inevitability that I was just going to die, drunk and high. And so, I had to go back, and part of that was some humility. Had to have, some gratitude that some people had intervened on my behalf. And I was given another chance to get clean and sober, but it was hard. It was really hard. And I think a lot of times it's that fear and that pride and that ego that keeps people out a lot longer than they need to. And during COVID, Paul and I had the opportunity to get sober, and I just remember, and I still hear about this. They talked about it at a meeting I was at this weekend. How many people with long-term good sobriety went back out and started drinking again during COVID, when meetings went away, and a number of those people passed away. And so it is very important to me to be honest, and to talk about this stuff so that I don't put myself in a position to go back out and start drinking and using again. And I hear a lot of people talk about this. They say things like, I got another drunk in me, but I don't know if I have another recovery in me. And one thing that Paul and I talk about is this wonderful lady named Rosetta, who gave us this quote, and she said, I never want to do the last 6 months in drinking, and I never want to do the first 6 months of getting sober again. And sometimes that's enough to just keep my head in the right place and get me to a meeting or call somebody or open up and talk to a friend. But yeah, I've had to do that a couple of times, and it's hard, and I think nobody's going to understand. I thought I would be ridiculed. I thought I'd be made fun of. I thought I'd be ostracized. I thought people wouldn't get it, and nobody understands relapse like alcoholics and addicts who have been struggling.
Absolutely. You and I were at a meeting last night where somebody who had relapsed 7 times and has now 8 years sobriety was doing a lead, and a wonderful lead. Mm-hmm. I've had my relapses myself, and yeah, it's tough. You had that humility of I screwed up, I fucked up. How do I go back? Well, we talk to people. Doug and I both talk to people every day that have done it. They've relapsed and they've come back to treatment. They've come back, try one more time. And you're not starting at zero. You're starting with the experience that you gained last time.
Absolutely.
So, it is hard. It's very hard. That first year is hell. It's going to be hell again the next time you do it. But there's hope. Each time that we do it, there's hope.
Yeah, and somebody that goes back out, it doesn't negate the work you put in before. And I really do feel like somebody can come back after a relapse, and it can be a learning experience. It can really solidify, maybe the powerlessness or the unmanageability or the lack of control that maybe we thought we had. Going back to treatment, the second time, I know for me, I took it much more seriously. I was much more committed and dedicated to my program, to getting back what I had before. And recently we had this really cool group in treatment. And there was probably like a core group of about 5 or 6 of them, and they'd all been kind of habitual relapsers. They'd all been to treatment multiple times. And what was really cool about that is they could all, learn from each other and share with each other what they did that didn't work. And so it was this really, really interesting group where we got to go and do a little bit more of a deep dive with these patients. And we didn't have to teach them a lot of the fundamentals. We had to go a little deeper and figure out, why we keep going back and touching the hot stove over and over and over again. And I'm just incredibly proud of the guys and girls that were in that group that are doing well right now. And some of them, are transitioning into the aftercare program, and they're in a different place this time. And so my hope is that they were able to learn from their relapse and learn from the relapse of those people around them, because it does not have to be, full of guilt and shame and regret and remorse and all that kind of stuff. But a lot of people use that resentment towards themselves and tell themselves, I'm never going to get this, or I've tried this before and it's never going to work, or they just have this hopeless feeling. And we're here to tell you, if you're struggling, there is hope, whether it's, getting back to meetings, whether it's going back to treatment again, in, whether it's getting yourself back in for detox. But it's, if you're staying out there and you're struggling by yourself, that's a terrible place to be. And I think Paul and I just want people to know that somebody cares, that people are here for you guys. And if you're struggling, go and reach out to those people. They will understand. I can promise you that.
The one last message that I really want to put forward, this is coming out during the holiday season, near the end of the holiday season, but the gift of recovery. It's not only a gift to yourself, but it's a gift to all those around you. Again, once you take care of yourself, then that starts to build upon your relationship with others. But the importance of going into recovery to getting through one day at a time.
Yeah, the gift of sobriety was without a doubt the best thing I ever did for myself, because it opened so many doors. Going back to school, changing careers, getting to help rebuild some of those really important relationships that I had. And none of that would have been possible without the gift of sobriety. And it's one of those it's a gift that keeps on giving. And I can hear, my parents, just how grateful they are, and my friends who are just so happy to have me, the real me, back in their lives. And that gift of sobriety is something that, it pays for itself over and over and over again. That gift of sobriety that, I get to help other people. And this podcast is a perfect example of that. Paul and I get together, a couple times a month, record a couple of these, put them up, and we get really good feedback from people. Some people who, I've known that are struggling, and some people who have just kind of reached out and said, hey, I got this thing going on and I don't know what to do about it. And so just to be able to be of maximum service to the world around me and to my fellow man is a gift in and of itself. And so I'm really grateful for that gift of sobriety, and getting to share that, and getting to, not just sit at home and watch TV, which I enjoy doing, but to go out and really, really, enjoy my life and enjoy my sobriety, and go do all these things that I talked about doing when I was drinking and using, that I just couldn't muster up the energy or the time or the money to go do. So that gift of sobriety, Paul, is huge. I want to hear some stuff from you.
Well, I think it goes back to an earlier topic from today, emotions. I feel happier now than I have in many, many years. I feel the joy of the seasons, in a whole different way. I don't have to go out and gift myself that bottle of vodka that's sitting in the trunk of my car. That was what I had to do for years. I went through the motions of trying to enjoy those holidays, but really until I got sober, I didn't enjoy them. I again was just going through the motions.
I know that a lot of times I was physically present, but I was not emotionally or mentally or spiritually there. And for me, it's just being able to go and sit and go through life, and feel that full range of human emotions. I haven't talked about this much, but just lost my grandmother, she was 99. She had some health issues. And I'm going to get to go out and be with family. So by the time this airs, the funeral will have taken place, but, I've let myself feel, which is something that I never really did when I was drinking and using. I've also, leaned heavily on other people. I've brought it up at meetings. I've let people know what's going on with me. I've talked to my therapist about this. Talked to my sponsor and other really, really close sober supports. Talked to people who've gone through similar things. And I've talked about it on this podcast when my uncle died back in 2016. I think I was already slipping away from the program, but I used that as fuel and ammunition to go back out and start drinking again for another 4 years. And I absolutely do not want to do that this time. And so I'm taking chances and putting myself out there and saying things that normally I would keep bottled up inside. And that's just another gift of this program, is being able to be vulnerable, is to share honestly and openly with people about things that are really, really fucking uncomfortable. And to be okay with feeling all those emotions and letting myself be vulnerable. So I'm really grateful for the opportunity to be clean and sober, to feel this full range of emotions, to be there for, my mom and my aunt who lost their mother. And just to not have to worry today about drinking and using, and to be able to do something like this with Paul is really cool for me. And again, all the great feedback we've been hearing from you guys is super awesome, and that's why we wanted to do this. So that gift of sobriety is allowing me to be present in not only my life but the lives of those around me.
Well, we hope to see you soon with some surprises, some new things in the first of the year, the new year. But again, stay sober for today. Tomorrow's going to be another day that we need to worry about it, but today we just need to worry about staying sober today.
Yeah, and one thing that I pass along to a lot of the people that I'm working with is just try to do 1% better today. Try to be 1% kinder, 1% more patient, 1% more understanding. Just try to be 1% better today, and then we'll get to tomorrow when it gets here. So again, we're super appreciative of everybody that's given this podcast a listen and passed it along to people that I've had a couple people reach out to me with some questions about what they or family members or friends have going on, and so don't be afraid to reach out, whether it's to us, whether it's to your local treatment centers, whether it's to your local AA or NA communities, whether it's somebody in your church. But if you're struggling, if you're worried about somebody else, don't hesitate to reach out, because sometimes they don't know how to reach out themselves. So we want to thank everybody for listening. Hope everybody had a happy holiday season, whatever it is that you celebrate. And we look forward to talking with you guys some more.
Until next time. The views and opinions expressed in this podcast are those of the hosts and guests and do not necessarily reflect those of any affiliated organization. This content is for informational purposes only and is not intended for professional advice. Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with a friend. Until next time.